Hey everybody, it's Gil here with the Sailing Vessel Dream Chaser, and I hope you enjoyed last week's video as much as we did. Getting the boat out off the dock, taking her out for a spin, making sure everything was good. It was so good to be back on Dream Chaser and out into the water. If you didn't see that video, I will put a link to it right up in this particular corner. By all means, please check it out. If you're on a mobile device, it'll be up there. If not, it'll be down in the links down below. What you saw in the video last week on the boat and the last 2 weeks while we were at the boat doing work on it probably didn't capture everything that happened. That trip to Louisiana was an absolute whirlwind. The plan was, my job is flexible. I can kind of work almost anywhere. If I can get online and have a phone and video conferencing, I can do my job for the most part anywhere I have that kind of access. What I don't recall if I shared was the plan. It was really a little bit of a last-minute decision. Deb and I were saying, man, we've got a lot of work we've got to do on the boat. We've got this family reunion coming up late in July. If not now, when? Like, we have work to do on the boat, and having somebody help with it's great, but we need to just get eyes on it. We got to do some work ourselves. So look, let's just head over to Louisiana. Let's just hook up the camper. We'll head over there. We'll stay at the state park. It's just right down the river from where we keep the boat, so it's just a couple miles away from the marina. And the thought was I would do my normal work routine during the day. I would, run to Starbucks and do what I did all the time when we were there doing the refit on the boat. And Deb would be with the girls in the camper. They would be doing schoolwork, etc., with the homeschooling. And we thought we would, do my work during the day, a couple hours of work on the boat every evening, and over the course of a week, a little more than a week, we would get a lot of progress made. Like, this was not a relaxing, let's go on vacation for a week and a half kind of trip. This was a whirlwind. It was get up in the morning, get to the boat, work until it's too hot, go and do your day job. If you get a break in the middle of your day job, clean the storage unit, finish your day job, go back to the boat, shower, lots of showers, my gosh, you're soaking wet every single time. Shower and repeat all over again. Like, that's exactly what this whole week really was. Part of the reason why it was so packed is because we had a lot of things to get done in a fairly short amount of time. We knew one of the bigger days, right, one of the weekend days was going to be taken up by taking the boat out. That was definitely on the agenda. We weren't going to go and do work on the boat and not be able to take it out. So that eliminated a big working day right there, and sort of forced us to get things done a little bit earlier. So I mentioned before, we left Punta Gorda on Friday. We got to Louisiana on Saturday. By the next Saturday, we had all those things sort of ready. We took the boat out on Sunday, enjoyed the day that way. We intended to leave early Tuesday morning, and we really wanted to spend some time with some friends of ours. We made really good friends in Louisiana, a whole bunch of them, but David and Lee have become close friends of ours, and we wanted to go spend a little bit of time with them. We were able to do that Monday night. So Monday was sort of taken up with, the work during the day, and then we were going to go to their house Monday evening.
Only Louisiana. I saw a low clearance and thought, oh, there must be a bridge up here, but nope, we got a 9-foot tree. Look at that. There are some parts of this state that sure are pretty, and this is one of them. We just happened to be driving through Lacombe along a little bayou that came out on the north side of Lake Pontchartrain. I saw a sign for the local boat ramp come by here, but that tree right there has got to be, I don't know, maybe 5 feet in diameter. I don't even know what the circumference would be. Deb and I couldn't even reach around it if we stood there, I'm sure. Trees are big enough, they just built the roads around them.
Needless to say, we had a great time with David and Lee. So after that visit with David and Lee, it was Monday night. We got back to the camper fairly late-ish, 9-10ish. And it was time to now pack everything up. As I said, we wanted to be on the road Tuesday morning, so Monday night we packed as much as we could in the car, got it ready to go. And my goal was to get home before it got dark, just to make it a little easier to park the trailer in its storage unit where we keep it. Tuesday morning, and what do they say, right? The best laid plans of mice and men often go astray. Let me tell you about this. So we hit the road early, and somewhere into Mississippi, not too far into Mississippi, I heard kind of 3 slaps, slap, slap, slap. And then I looked in the mirror and I saw a piece of tire fly up behind the camper. I knew I didn't run over it, so I sort of coasted to the side of the road to see what was up. And sure enough, the back left trailer tire. Now this is a 30-foot bumper pull camper, so it's a big camper for a bumper pull, and it's new. It's 2018, so it's 2 years old. It's a tandem axle, and the back left tire was just shredded. It's almost like it was a retread. The tread came off, and what was there was rubber and wire and metal. Looked really rough. So I looked on Google, and sure enough, at the very next exit, a half mile up, there was an 18-wheeler truck and trailer repair place. Just limped on down the road very slowly on the 3 tires on the camper, thinking, please go slow enough, don't hit any bumps. Let's make sure that we don't have the extra weight pop that other tire that's there, since we're now distributing all the weight onto that on the left-hand side. Got to the tire place, we waited the 20 minutes or so before they opened. And it became kind of obvious to me, and for all the right reasons. They are focused on their 18-wheeler customers, and they had a host of trucks out there waiting as well. So it was probably a good 30 minutes after they opened before they even got to me to say, what can I help you with? At that point, I wanted to try to do something a little quicker. Just looking around, you knew that this place wasn't going to have a tire for this in stock. If the tire was as big as me, there's a good chance they would have. So I just had taken the spare off while waiting for them and asked them to jack it up and put it on. Lesson learned, first lesson learned, there's not a jack in a camper, and the one for your car doesn't usually work. So I need to get a really good jack and keep it in the camper. A spare tire does no good without it. So anyway, we had these guys put a tire on, and while we were waiting on them to do that, to just put the spare on and just give us the ratty one and stick it in the camper, I contacted a tire place about 5 or 6 miles up the road, and they had 4 of this particular size in stock and said, yep, come on over. So we pulled up to the tire place. They had us back up next to their building with it still connected to the truck. And this place was amazingly fast. It was like a NASCAR pit crew. One guy came out with the jack. He jacked the whole thing up with on one side, pulled the tires off, rolled them to 2 guys who took the tires off the old rims, put the new ones on, rolled them back. He whacked those on, and they repeated both sides. I mean, we were probably out of there within 30 minutes, maybe 35 minutes, and part of that was spent waiting for them to finish putting some tires on a flatbed trailer that was in front of us. New tires, get back on the road, get some gas, head out, and now we are crossing Mississippi, we're into Alabama, got into Florida, and somewhere past Pensacola, east of Pensacola, I don't remember where, we're driving along, and all of a sudden the camper started to do that sway thing behind it. And I've had this happen before in the past. I pulled over, I checked all the tires, because the first thing I was thinking is, oh no, lug nuts came loose because I just had these tires put on. But no, everything seemed fine, right? I shook all the tires, everything felt good. I couldn't see anything wrong. So now we keep going, and we're somewhere north of Panama City, Florida. And I'm checking my mirrors constantly. I check my mirror, I look, and I see a tire rolling down the road next to the camper. What the hell? So now, again, I'm thinking, okay, lug nuts came loose. What the hell else could it be? That's the strangest thing. I didn't feel anything in the camper, not a weird noise. Just looked back and saw this tire, and right away I'm like, it's got to be mine. Too coincidental, right? So again, let off the gas, start coasting to the side of the road. By the way, these roads all have rumble strips down I-10s the whole time. So we pull over onto the shoulder, and I watch the tire. It goes, I was in the right lane, 2-lane highway, goes into the left lane, across the left lane, into the grassy median. It comes back from the grassy median, across the left lane, and then starts to go across the right lane, and I lose sight of it behind the camper. I stop. Sure enough, I go back and I look. There's no tire. No tire, no wheel, no rim, no hub. The brake assembly that squeezes out onto the hub. The only thing that's there is a bent axle and a hunk of brake mechanism. What the fuck? I could tell just looking at it that this wasn't going to be good. So I got back in the car and I started driving down the shoulder with the hazards on at 5 miles an hour. This thing wasn't dragging the ground, but again, we're back to a situation where I'm limping on three wheels, and it was the same exact one as earlier, by the way. So I think I know what ended up happening to this. So yeah, same exact one. So while we're limping down the highway, we had plenty of time, because at 5 miles an hour, the next exit was like 6 miles up. So we called a mobile RV place who said, yeah, no problem, I'll meet you. Where are you going to be at?
She sure isn't supposed to look like that. God damn.
After Corey looked at it, he thought he could get an axle. So he said, look, why don't you try to stay here somewhere? There's a campground right across the way. So we pulled up to this little place called the Hitchin Post in Cottondale, Florida. They were phenomenal, by the way. We told them we had a problem. They're like, no problem, we've got a spot for you. They gave us a pull-through spot that was really long, could accommodate like an 85-foot setup, which was great. It let us be in there with our truck and also the work truck, plenty of space to work on it. Easy out and in of the campground. Like, they were really, really nice, and the folks were really wonderful too. So we got set up at the hitching post. Corey came back out that evening, jacked up the truck, and he pulled the axle off the camper, and he really thought he could get another one. And he said, you know, look, there's trailer companies all over, I can just buy a new axle, I think.
And there was no repair in this one. This is the end of the actual axle.
So that night, Deb and I hunkered down Tuesday night, and we waited till Wednesday morning. We were hoping, you know, Corey was going to call and tell us he was able to grab an axle from a local trailer supply place. As it turned out, he wasn't able to get an axle. Didn't have one that was that size or whatever the specifications were. So he came back by with our axle and he said, look, there's another thing we can do, and this is a very common approach. Instead of replacing the whole axle, what we can do is cut this spindle off. These are replaceable parts. You get a new spindle. You bore out where you had it welded on the inside of the axle. You put the new spindle onto it. You weld it back on. It's a very common approach. I'm like, all right, well, that sounds like that's what we've got to do then. As you can imagine, that's not as simple as walking to a place and saying, can I buy this thing, and walking out the door with it. So Corey took our axle to a machine shop. They did the work on it, and then, you know, got it back to him.
Well, darn it looks like I'm having some mic problems, so I'm dubbing this over. But what I was saying here is I stopped at a little gas station before I went to grab dinner, given that we were going to be there another day, and I was a little bit surprised. So we're about an hour drive inland from the shore, north of Panama City and Mexico Beach. And you can see at this gas station, which is open, there's still destruction. Like, the roof is still gone on this. And that, you know, that hurricane was in 2018 at this point, so a full 2 years later. I asked the woman if this was leftover damage from Hurricane Michael, and she said it was, and she heard that they're going to come out in the next 4 months or something to put up a new roof on this thing. It just surprised me that far away from the shore, that they still had this much damage, and as widespread as it was, trees knocked down and everything else. But I'm off to Subway, just a little bit down the road. I'm going to pick up some sandwiches, bring them back to the camper, and hopefully Corey's going to be there soon to get the new axle so we can get this repair and get on the road.
And he came back out to do the work, but that meant he didn't get there till like 6:30 that evening. And again, we were hoping to be back on the road. Let's see, that was Tuesday. So we were hoping to be back on the road by Thursday. This was Wednesday midday-ish that we tried to figure something out. So Wednesday evening is when he was able to get back over with this repaired axle and put it back on the camper. So my lesson learned from all of this was, we believe what caused that issue was actually the bad bearings. The bearings wore out, and there's two sets of bearings. There's the inner one and the outer one. The outer one dried up, and they were getting so hot. He even said, he goes, chances are when this tire came off, when that wheel came off, it was probably glowing red, as was your axle. Because that was starting to rub raw metal to metal, the friction heat was heating that up, and it caused the end of that axle spindle to basically bend upward. It got so hot it bent up. That was the lesson we learned in all of this, and shame on me. I should have checked that. I didn't think to repack the bearings that frequently. I just kind of thought they would work I thought they would work better than they did. This trailer has a little cap. You take it off and there's a greaser, and you grease the bearings, and what happens is that greaser is in the core of that spindle, and grease fills it up, and they come out behind the outer bearing. So the inner bearing was well greased. The outer one doesn't get a lot of that grease, and Corey's even saying your better bet is to take it off and hand pack that front bearing, the outer one, because they just don't get a lot of grease from that system. So I'm going to be looking at something like a Bearing Buddy or something else like that to help ensure that those things stay packed as well. So I got to give you, like, Corey worked on this thing late into the evening. He finished 9:30ish or so. We connected it up to the truck. We didn't actually take it for a test drive, but we connected it to the truck so we could make sure that the electric brakes were all working. You know, he wrapped up late in the evening. Deb and I put the girls to bed and ready for our next day.
We have two axles. We have repacked bearings. I've painted the exposed wood. I've covered it all with aluminum tape, hopefully to keep any moisture off of it when we hit the road in the morning, but we are set. It's about 9:45 at night. He just left. I'll tell you, the guy was really good. Yeah, his name was Corey, Mobile RV Service. Really nice. And frankly, out here doing, work in the evening and couldn't get the parts, so I ended up having a machine shop make one for us. All in all, positive experience at this point. I haven't gone down the road yet, but positive experience. Yeah, happy to sort of be done with this ordeal, I hope. So bright and early tomorrow morning, we're going to get up. I've got the truck sitting up there with the trailer ready to drop down on it and hook up. So first thing in the morning, as the girls are waking up and getting the stuff out of their back bunk room right here, I told them this before, as soon as you get up, get all the stuff you want out of your bedroom, put it out here in the main room, because we're going to start closing this slide out, because the slide out blocks that door. You can't get into the back bedroom with the slide out in. So hopefully we'll be on the road early, maybe 6-ish a.m., I hope.
Wah, wah, wah. Remember my comment about the best laid plans of mice and men? My foreshadowing a moment ago saying, well, we haven't been on the road yet, but we left the campground no more than a quarter of a mile. We went down the street to the set of railroad tracks. The whole time I was sort of tapping the brakes a little bit, making sure that they were getting adjusted before I got on the freeway in another mile. And I stopped at those railroad tracks, and I thought, let me check everything out. I got in the back, and as soon as I started walking back toward the wheels on the left-hand side, I could smell heat, like that smell of heat, and I suspect it was heat and the bearings and grease that was on it just burning off. So I touched the wheels, touched that back rim, and I could not touch it. It was like touching a hot frying pan, hot. I was like, holy crap, what the heck? So I look at the other side seems fine, and that's when I noticed as I walk behind the camper that when you look from behind, right, your wheels should line up. They should be completely aligned. And on the driver's side, on the passenger side, the right side of the vehicle, perfectly aligned. On the driver's side, where we had the problem, the tires were not aligned, and the back tire was a good 1.5 inset from the front one. What the hell? So I grabbed my little cup of water I had, and I was going to drink, and I tossed it, splashed it on the tire. Steam comes off of it. This is crazy. So we sat there for 30 or 45 minutes, let it cool down. I had to make a U-turn right past the railroad tracks, which is not easy in a big old rig like that. And then we headed right back to the campground, texted Corey, because again, this is 6:30 in the morning or something. Texted Corey, and I jokingly said to the girls as we pulled in, I'm like, well, we live in Cottondale, Florida now, family. So frustrating. So we pulled back in and waited till 8 o'clock so I could call Corey again. I didn't want to call him very early. Corey came back out pretty early. I mean, he was probably there by 9 o'clock in the morning. He came out, took a look at it. He's like, yeah, I agree. It doesn't look right. It doesn't help that we kind of finished the work late at night. It was dark. It was on the left-hand side, so underneath the slide out. Like, things were against us to have noticed this. I didn't notice it. He didn't notice it. People make mistakes, and this guy has been, so far, he's been very good about, admitting, like, hey, something went wrong. I don't know exactly what. Let me figure it out. Kind of doing the right thing. With this, he's like, let me come out, let me figure out what we need to do. We might need that axle that we couldn't find. I don't know, but give me some time to make some calls. Let me figure out what we can do. Now, keep in mind, it's Thursday. We are now 13 days from the day we left. And I was just antsy and ready to be home. I just wanted to go back home and not deal with the camper for a little bit. It wasn't a whole lot we were going to be able to do there. I contacted the manufacturer, Lippert, that makes our axles in our camper. They don't stock them. They're like, yeah, no problem. We can make it. It'll take 5 to 7 days to make it, but it's not something, UPS carries, so it's got to go via truck delivery. And right now that's taken approximately 4 weeks anywhere outside of the Midwest, just because of delays in the shipping industry right now. But I was really frustrated. I just felt like, the flat tire, getting 4 new tires, the tire coming off. Now it's an axle problem, and now the axle's not right. Just really frustrated with it. I'd like to call it something else. I was bitching and moaning to one of my coworkers about it, and he had a great quote. I love how pragmatic he is. That's why I like this guy so much. So he says to me, he said, look, it's not that bad, right? You and your family are healthy. You didn't have a crash. Nothing happened. You have the money to do the repairs.
and you're not selling your body in the back of a Walmart parking lot for your next meal. Like, it's not that bad. And I laughed at first, and then I realized he's 100% right. I was getting all pissy about this. There wasn't a big deal. It's just a camper. We're fine. Like, it was the perspective I think I needed at just the right time. So thank you, Danny. With that very logical and pragmatic perspective, Deb and I sort of weighed our options. We talked to Corey. He did not have an axle locally. He said, I can get one. I can either wait that time frame for Lippert, or I can get another brand, right? Doesn't, you know, there's a bunch of axle manufacturers out there. We can get another brand, make sure it's the same size and specifications, whatever we need to do. I asked him, like, okay, well, can we just bring the camper, if we get the camper, tow it to your shop? He's like, well, I'd like to, but Hurricane Michael took care of our shop, so we just work out of our homes. Everything's 100% remote. He goes, you can bring it to my place if you want to leave it there. I wasn't real comfortable doing that, so I'd rather it somewhere where it's a little bit more secure, or at least I know the area. So I asked the campground if they have a place that people can store campers. A lot of campgrounds, especially ones in Florida, will have places that you can store a campground for, like the snowbirds, and then they come back on season. And he's like, well, we don't have something quite like that, but we do have like 3 places where there's no power or water, and there's a spot where you can park it. It'll be perfectly safe. You know, we run security in here, and it's gated and all that. That would be great. I'm expecting it's going to cost me $600 for the month. To his credit, he says, we're really reasonable on this. It's no cost. You gotta be kidding me, that's phenomenal. So anyway, that's what we did. We unhooked the camper in that storage area. We got in the car at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we drove home. We got home Thursday night at midnight or something like that. So I guess that was my trip. And I share it with you just because what we show sometimes in the video of, oh, look how cool, I'm raising the sails and killing some wasps, and now we're out in the boat and it's so enjoyable. The reality behind that was not quite all the roses and sunshine that we show in the video. That was our trip, and I've got one coming back up because at this point, I'm still waiting on the camper to be repaired, and I've got to go get it. And it's a 6.5-hour drive to go get it from here. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this glimpse into the craziness of the last couple of weeks of videos. Bye, y'all. Safe sailing, and we'll see you next Friday.